From the subject line of this letter, I'm sure you're already approaching this story with a bit of doubt. I know it sounds less like a real experience and more like the title of one of those cheap, typo-ridden books printed by some local publisher. Still, I hope you'll give me a moment of your attention, because I promise this story is true, at least the part one lived myself. The rest was told to me by people close to my family, who had no reason to invent lies. This tale has two parts. The first is what I know from my mother, and the second is what I personally experienced. It all takes place in the main house of a countryside estate, just about an hour and a half from the city. The estate belonged to my family since it was built, though today it's owned by my grandfather's brother, now a very old man, the only one I've ever known who chose to stay there permanently. He lives surrounded by caretakers and staff, because the estate still functions as a tourist site. It's rented out for weddings, events, even commercial shoots. For the rest of the family, it has always been a place for gatherings, family parties, weekends away. We all enjoyed it freely, until the place decided to reveal what it truly hides. For my mother, that moment came when she turned 14. Until then, she remembered the estate only as a place of fun, laughter, and good memories. Sure, there were darker corners, passages that turned eerie at night, and a massive hallway leading to underground rooms. But those were just part of childhood games, places to hide during hide-and-seek with her cousins. One week after her birthday, she went to the estate for the weekend with some cousins and 3 school friends. They arrived on a Friday afternoon, and everything was wonderful. So calm, in fact, that she barely remembers much from that day. What marked her forever happened in the early hours of the morning. She woke to the sound of one of her friends jumping out of bed and hitting the floor heavily. Through half-shut eyes, she saw the girl rush to the door and run out, leaving it wide open. My mother thought perhaps it was just an urgent trip to the bathroom, so she drifted back to sleep. When the first ray of sunlight hit her face, she woke again. The door was still open, and both of her roommates were still sound asleep. "Hey, don't leave the door open. Other people are around, anything could happen," she scolded, annoyed. The 2 girls stirred awake, confused. Neither had left the room. One insisted that she too had heard someone get up and run out, and had thought it was my mother. The 3 of them were uneasy the rest of the morning, but by midday, between swimming and chatting with the others, they pushed the strange incident aside. That peace didn't last long. As night fell, one cousin suggested telling scary stories. My mother, already nervous, didn't want to take part. But one of her roommates suddenly exclaimed, "Fine, then we'll tell them what happened to us last night." At once, Magda, the oldest cousin at 16, grew serious. She listened with concern, which surprised my mother, since Magda was usually the one eager to spook everyone. "So she came into your room," Magda said at last. The others froze. "The witch is still around," whispered another cousin. The word which should have sounded childish, even silly at their age. But it silenced everyone. "I only saw her once," Magda continued. "But so did my mother, and my grandmother. She appears once, and then not again. So I don't think you have anything to fear." Magda explained that long ago, at the start of the last century, a woman lived there, a healer who worked with the farmers, treating their wounds after brutal days of labor. But then something terrible happened. The young wife of their ancestor, the estate's owner, was giving birth. She was only 15 and terrified. They called for the woman to help, but when the doctor arrived, he threw her out. Enraged, she fought to stay, until 2 workers dragged her back to her room and locked her in under guard. The labor went badly. The doctor told the owner he could save only one, the mother or the baby. The owner chose the baby without hesitation. But in the end, neither survived. The grief-stricken father stormed toward the doctor, ready to kill him, when a chilling sound filled the house, the wails of a woman, followed by the cries of a newborn, coming from the witch's locked room. When they burst inside, the room was empty. The guards swore she had never left. From that day forward, nothing at the estate was the same. She was seen wandering the grounds, slipping into the woods when spotted. Decades later, when the old master was nearly 90 and had grandchildren of his own, she reappeared, speaking to the youngest boy as if trying to lure him away. Workers captured her, and though the master recognized her instantly, even after more than 50 years, he gave no command when they accused her of witchcraft. That night, they burned her alive. But sightings continued. Now, the woman was seen charred and blackened, drifting silently along the estate's paths. I saw her myself, Magda said. When I told my mother, she told me this whole story, passed down from our grandmother. And now, you've seen her too. The girls fell into terrified silence. One of my mother's friends finally asked, "How did you see her, Magda?" Magda described how, at 12, she had spotted a dark figure walking calmly among the trees. At first, she thought it was a visitor, but when all others had left, the figure remained. Dressed in black, her skin, arms, face, all looked as though they were painted in shadow, with flickers of red glowing through. Magda followed her. The woman disappeared behind a tree. When Magda circled it, she was gone. Then, suddenly, Magda was standing face to face with her own reflection in a window. Only it wasn't her reflection at all. It was the burned woman smiling back at her. From that night on, Magda warned my mother never to approach if she saw her again. But my mother did see her. That very night. She woke to unbearable heat, as if the room were filled with fire. In the darkness, she sensed a presence standing between the two beds. "I'm sorry for what happened to you," my mother whispered. There was no reply, only a ragged, guttural breathing that shook the room. "What do you want?" one of her friends cried. The figure turned. My mother saw the faint outline of a woman, her body radiating heat that scorched the air. Then, suddenly, the heat vanished. Panicked, my mother leapt into her friend's bed. The girls screamed, then realized it was her. None of them slept the rest of the night. By dawn, they demanded to be taken back to the city. It took months for my mother to return to the estate. She never saw the witch again. Years later, she finally told me this story, on the very day that I had my own encounter at that estate. But that is a story for another time. Thank you for listening, friends.